Hey everyone, Brian Zane here with my review of WWE Elimination Chamber 2019. Very up and down show this one was. Lots of exhilarating highs and confusing lows, and we'll talk about all the points in between as we go through the course of this review. Let's begin with the kickoff match, the Cruiserweight Championship on the line as Buddy Murphy defends against Akira Tozawa. It's very sad the fact that the Cruiserweight title never seems to get past the point of kickoff show fodder. I'd love to see it at some point make a main show match, a main show appearance. Like I think the last time we saw that happen was in 2017. I mean, talk about the women's revolution. Let's talk about the Cruiserweight revolution. Let's get them a prominent spot in the car, why don't we? Early in the match, Buddy hurts his hand on the outside by inadvertently attacking the ring post, but he does catch a suicide dive attempt by Akira into a nice suplex on the outside. As the match goes on, we get a picture-in-picture interview with Xavier Woods and Big E talking about Kofi's chances in the Elimination Chamber match later on. Buddy pulls a dirty dancing on Akira in the corner before Akira counters into a Hurricane Rana, 2 suicide dives, and a big-ass senton onto Buddy's back as he's draped over the middle rope. We get the Iron Octopus attempt, but Buddy counters out of it, hits the Murphy's Law, and retains the championship. I give this one 3 stars out of 4. It was a very exciting matchup. Unfortunately, as I've mentioned, it bears repeating, does not factor into the overall grade of the show proper, but Buddy and Akira continuing to prove why the Cruiserweights are the guys to watch right now in WWE. The show officially begins with the Elimination Chamber match for the Women's Tag Team Championship match. And, speaking of one of the participants, I know one of the big stories this weekend has been, Corey Graves' wife apparently going on Instagram and calling him out for cheating on her with Carmella. I'm not going to pass judgment on this story right now because, we don't know the whole story. We don't know what's going on in this relationship, but I will say this, I do find it interesting that, then again, not that interesting, not that surprising at least, that the brunt of the online scorn seems to be geared toward Carmella in this, because if this story is true, it's a terrible thing, but if it is true, then Corey is just as culpable as Carmella is, so I wonder why Corey Graves wouldn't get as much hate online as Carmella. Can't seem to put my finger on it. The Boss and Hug connection and Fire and Desire are the ones opening this matchup here. Beth Phoenix, who was on commentary for this match, is the first and only person in the entire time to bring up the Jumping Bomb Angels and the Glamour Girls, who, despite what the company is telling you now, were previous women's tag team champions. So nice to see a little bit of history brought up in this historic matchup. A painful looking spot early on when Mandy's foot gets caught in the chamber wall and Bayley hits her with a neck breaker and it leaves Mandy's leg hanging in there. That looks really painful on her ankle. The Riott Squad come out next and they beat up everybody else. We get an interesting slap fight between Sonya Deville and Liv Morgan, where at one point Liv slaps a taste out of Sonya's mouth. She goes for a punch of her own, and you can tell Liv tries to do like the Matrix dodge, a la Trish Stratus, but she ends up getting hit anyway. Everyone's down after a Tower of Doom spot. The Iconics show up next. They try pinning everybody, but fail. They work over Sasha Banks. They taunt her and Bayley by shoving them face first into the mesh and pointing at the belt saying, "You're not getting those." Very interesting spot here. At one point, Peyton does a kind of like a flipping senton over the ropes to the outside onto Sasha and Bayley. And a little detail here I think is worth pointing out. Sasha puts her hand over her and Bayley's face at the same time to block Peyton's heels from hitting them in the face. Very nice little piece of awareness by Sasha there. Carmella and Naomi come out next. Everyone gets their shit in. Naomi with some heat on Mandy Rose. Then a great double pin combination from the Iconics to eliminate Naomi and Carmella. There's a cool moment right after that when all the other teams get up and surround Peyton and Billy. Before anything happens though, they point and say, "Look, we should be focusing on those ladies." And sure enough, Nia Jax and Tamina come out last and they clean house. The Iconics hide in their pod, but the Samoan Slaughterhouse open it up and beat them up. They eliminate the Iconics. Then we get a nice double dive off the top of the pod by the Riott Squad. Nia and Tamina destroy them anyway and eliminate them. Nia Jax goes to tackle Bayley through one of the pods, which it's worth pointing out my live stream predicted this last week, only for Bayley to dodge in this case, and so Nia just plows herself through the glass. She's out. The look of concern on Tamina is great. Everyone beats up Tamina, and they all work together to pin her and get her and Nia eliminated. Great storytelling because that was like the team to beat the big monsters, and everyone works together to beat them up. So we are down to the final 2 teams, and they were the first 2 teams, Sasha Banks and Bayley, and Sonya Deville and Mandy Rose. A nice backstabber into Bayley to Belly combo on Sonya Deville, but Mandy saves her. Bayley gets laid out by Sonya, so it's Sasha all by herself. Kind of an inverse of what happened last week on Raw. Mandy with a near fall on Sasha, then after a miscommunication, Sasha gets Sonya in a modified bank statement, and Sonya taps, and we have new women's tag team champions in Sasha and Bayley. I give this one 3 stars out of 4. There were a couple of slip-ups in the match, but they were so minor. To me, it doesn't take away from everything else that went on in the match, and a very strong match. Great story told by all the women involved. And what I think I liked about this match in hindsight, the more I think about it, is every team got a chance to show off like the unique characteristic about them. Like the Iconics were the comedy act, like trying to pin everybody, and they're screaming and hollering the whole time. You had Sasha Banks and Bayley as kind of like the friends who are looking out for each other, and the strong connection they have with each other and the fans. Nia and Tamina, of course, the monsters. Ruby, the Riott Squad, I should say, were like the feisty scrappers and that sort of thing. So I think everyone got their personalities to shine through in this one, telling a really good story. I think Sasha and Bayley winning is very poetic. I think it's a nice kind of like cherry on top to their journey so far in the main roster, especially this last year has been super confusing for their timeline, but I feel this is kind of a nice way to end it because they were the ones several months ago to first broach the topic on air of women's tag team championships, and so for them to be the first ones to win, I think is very nice. Some of my friends online were complaining about, it sucks that a real team didn't win. I'm sorry, Sasha and Bayley are a real team. They've been teaming for months at this point, not to mention they've had this like on and off angle, story as like friends and rivals for friggin' years. So yeah, they're a team. Miz defend the Smackdown tag titles against the Usos. Before the match begins, the Miz and Maurice announce they're having another baby, so mazel tov to the Mizannins. A great moment on commentary when Miz is doing the it kicks, and then Corey Graves goes, "Didn't you guys used to yell at me when I used to call them that?" And then Tom goes, yeah, that was pretty funny. We get some mutual mockery here. Miz mocks the Uso chant, and Jimmy does Miz's corner clothesline. Shane gets tagged in as a damn bicycle kick in his hot tag. Shades of Sheamus going on here. He hits the coast to coast on Jimmy, then gets greedy, goes for another one on Jay, but he eats a super kick for his effort. Miz gets a tag in and does a damn springboard axe handle. Where's he getting this from? He puts Jay on the announce table and he tells Shane to get up for the elbow drop from the top to the outside. Shane looks like he's concussed practically. He's so out of it, but he nails the elbow drop. Jimmy with a super kick goes for the splash, but Miz puts up the knees. Skull-crushing finale, but there's a kick out. Jimmy rolls up Miz in the kick out to win, and the Usos are the new SmackDown Tag Team Champions, so it just goes to show you, even if you get in trouble with the law like Jimmy Uso did this past weekend, that's not going to kill your push. I give this one 2.5 stars out of 4. I think this match really delivered. I know we talked trash about Shane and his position in the company as like a wrestler, but I think he did really well in this match. They showed some surprising teamwork, and we got some really good stuff near the end. I don't think it's on the same level of, say, like the Usos versus, the New Day, for example, so I can't in good conscience possibly rate this match at or above, those matches, but this is still very good in its own way. Intercontinental Championship handicap match up next as Bobby Lashley and Lio Rush defend against Finn Balor. Finn has Lashley's number early on here. He goes for a dive, but Lio trips him up and Finn chases him around. Lashley cuts him off. Lashley and Lio doing a lot of great stuff together, working together and working over Finn. Lashley goes for the kill, but Lio does a tag in, so he gets a little hot, bit of a grandstand and hot dogging. He wants to get the glory here. He goes for a frog splash, but Finn misses, and Finn moves, I should say. Lio misses. Finn makes his big comeback, plancha onto both guys on the outside. He hits Lio with a coup de grace, and Finn wins, and for the first time is the Intercontinental Champion. I give this one 2 stars out of 4. I think it's often difficult to try and make me care about like a handicap match because often it's pretty obvious that the heels are going to win or whoever has the advantage is going to win. But they did a pretty good job telling a story here and making it believable that Finn would come back in the way he did. I did not expect him to win, but he was able to pull it off, and I think it's smart to have Lio take the fall here. It protects Lashley. I would like to see him do more with the championship. The last 2 IC champions now we've seen, Dean Ambrose and Bobby Lashley, really didn't get to do much with it. And so it's kind of disappointing. And maybe based on what we see later in the show, we can see more of Bobby and Finn in the future over the championship. Or maybe Finn will take on one of the other 2 people involved in this thing I'm talking about in the future. But yeah, that's how it was. After the match, Lashley slams Lio because he dropped the ball fall and cost them the belt. I was also disappointed about that because I think that I really liked what Lio Rush brought to the table and really helping add a lot of character to Bobby Lashley's gimmick, because without Lio Rush, Bobby was pretty bland. When he was added on as a manager when Bobby was a face, I was really intrigued. And then when they turned heel together, I thought that was great as well. I thought, okay, this is what we really want to see. I want to see more like personality, and Lio has enough personality for both of them. I thought it was great. So kind of disappointed in the fact that he is now being left by the wayside. Based on what we see coming up later in the show, I don't see Lio getting back into it, which is unfortunate. Hopefully, Lio will not be shunted down to 205 Live exclusively for very long. Hopefully, he can stay as a part of Raw or maybe even SmackDown. They show footage from a house show the previous night that shows Becky Lynch storming a match between Asuka and Charlotte, and she ends up getting her knee beat up by Charlotte in the process. We then go to the Raw Women's Championship match as Ronda Rousey defends against Ruby Riott. Charlotte makes her way to the ring beforehand because she's going to be at ringside to watch what goes on. Just a pre-match interview about how she is the best. Ronda has a nice Sonya Blade-inspired gimmick to coincide with her doing the voice work for Sonya in the new Mortal Kombat game. The match begins and the match ends. There's not really much to it. It's basically Ronda squashes Ruby Riott, which it really fucking sucks. That's like, gotta be a harsh break for Ruby, because I was going into it thinking it'd be a good match, and it just was nothing. It was a total squash. This belonged on Raw. Didn't deserve to have it. Ruby did not deserve that kind of treatment, is all I'm saying. I know like there was no hope she was gonna win, but come on, make me care, make me believe there's a chance. Anyway, I give it a half star out of 4. Because that's the most I could possibly give it, but it's not bad enough to be a 0-star one. I guess they had to justify Ronda being on the show somehow, but yeah, it could have been something on Raw. Anyway, after the match, Charlotte and Ronda face off, and all of a sudden Becky Lynch shows up, hobbling through the crowd on crutches. I think at this point, every week she should come out looking more beat up as the weeks go on, like crutches, neck brace, arm in a sling, wheelchair. Just every week she gets more and more beat up, and she keeps like strutting down the crowd with a big smile on her face or whatever. So anyway, she gets in the ring and she starts beating up Charlotte with one of her crutches. And then after that, she hands the other crutch to Ronda and tells her to beat up Charlotte. And then when Ronda has her back turned, Becky beats up Ronda with the crutch. DTB, don't trust Becky. And so then the referees and security come down and break it up. Ronda is escorted out, or as Becky, I should say, is escorted out. And yeah, now you have two very peeved off ladies in Charlotte and Ronda Rousey. And at this point, it seems to me the way they're going to justify bringing Becky back into the match is that Ronda and or Charlotte are going to make an appeal to the McMahons to reinstate Becky so they can take out their aggression on her in the match, which to me, I was like, she's already punished. Keep her out of the match. Baron Corbin takes on Braun Strowman up next. They added a no DQ stipulation at the last minute here, which I think is an improvement because on paper, a match between these two just by itself bores the hell out of me. But anyway, this match I think was improved slightly by the no DQ aspect. Corbin strikes first with some kendo stick shots, but Braun fights back, breaks the stick in half over his knees. Corbin is able to cut off Strowman using a flying office chair as a distraction, hits him a bunch with some steel stairs. Strowman comes out, he makes a comeback, brings up the table, slams Corbin through the table, but before he could pin him, out comes Drew McIntyre with a steel chair, out comes Bobby Lashley from behind with a steel chair. So you've got Corbin, McIntyre, and Lashley all beating up Strowman. They construct this giant thing of like steel stairs and two tables, and they do the triple power bomb to Strowman through the two tables. Corbin wins because, by the way, this match is still going on. Corbin actually gets a win over Braun Strowman, the same guy who was pulled out of the title match at the Rumble because allegedly Vince didn't want him losing to Brock Lesnar. Funny how that works. I give this one 1 star out of 4. So here we have the trio of Corbin and Lashley and McIntyre standing tall, very similar to how Monday Night Raws were ending in the end quarter of 2018, back when the show was doing some of the worst shit they were possibly doing. So yay, that whole aura of the new era has died down. Let's bring this group back together and see what they can do. Like again, much like what we saw with Ronda and Charlotte, and to a lesser extent Ruby, this was straight up a Raw segment. This did not have to happen on pay-per-view. Yeah, there you go. I mean, the match itself was okay. And I think the added weapon stipulation made it better than I think it could have been as a straight-up matchup. And it also justified, Drew and Bobby getting involved. But again, why are we trying to bring this group back together? I feel bad for Drew and Bobby here because I just don't think they deserve better than this. After a backstage segment where The Miz flips out over losing the Smackdown tag titles and Shane tells him to go home and calm down, we then go to see Lacey Evans, who we haven't seen since the Rumble match, make her way out to the ramp, then walk back. And they fade to black and go to the next thing. Like, wait, did I have a stroke? What happened? Why did Lacey Evans just show up and leave? I expected her to pull a microphone out of her purse, her handbag, and talk for a bit, but we didn't get that. I'm like, what was the, I mean, other than to remind people she exists, which you've had a whole month to do, why did you do that then? Main event time, it's the Elimination Chamber match for the WWE Championship as Daniel Bryan defends against Kofi Kingston, Samoa Joe, Jeff Hardy, AJ Styles, and Randy Orton. I love Daniel Bryan's new graphics aesthetic. With the graphics on the entrance, the lower third, the name key, the eco-friendly championship match graphic. I love every bit of that. The referees bar Rowan from ringside in the middle of Daniel Bryan's promo. Daniel and Samoa Joe start things out in the chamber, and Daniel tries to run away from Joe for a long time, but time eventually runs out on him. Kofi Kingston, the new hero of the match, is next. He gets a hot start, but he's cut off by Daniel Bryan. Big knee drop off the top to Kofi, who's draped over the top rope. D-Bry chills out on the top of a pod, but Kofi leaps after him. They have a bit of a scuffle up there, a climb on the wall, big trust fall onto Joe and Bryan. Joe works the two over, a big senton right on Daniel's arm, which looked absolutely painful. AJ Styles comes out next, and right away the announcers are putting over the real AJ Styles, the animal instinct, and the black hole in his soul. Look, he punched Vince McMahon once. That's literally the only thing he's done that discerns or that differentiates the real AJ Styles from the fake AJ Styles, okay? That whole experiment, not working out. Anyway, Daniel's climbing the chamber wall and Styles hits him with a phenomenal forearm. Joe's got the clutch locked in on Kofi, but he gets out of it with a jawbreaker. Joe eats a forearm from out of nowhere. Nice camera work there to have Styles fly into the shot. Joe is the first one eliminated. Jeff Hardy is out next, and he's on a roll at first. Hardy and Styles are fighting on the top rope, and Styles takes quite a spill on his gut on the top turnbuckle. Swanton bomb onto Styles from the top of the pod to Styles' back as he's draped over the top rope. Such a cool, innovative spin on the Swanton. But we don't get much chance to really celebrate that because Hardy immediately eats the knee from Bryan, and Jeff is eliminated. The men get their own little Tower of Doom spot as AJ hits Bryan with a German as he's hitting Kofi with a superplex. Randy Orton is out last. Styles goes for the forearm a few minutes later, but Orton grabs him on the ropes and RKOs him. Styles is now eliminated. Orton goes for an RKO on Kingston, but Kofi dodges, hits the Trouble in Paradise, and Orton is gone. We're down to Kofi and Bryan, and from this point on, the crowd is just on the edge of their seats from beginning to end. Great fire from Kofi early on where he absorbs Daniel's kicks. Says, come on, I'm ready, let's do this. He hits the SOS, but Daniel kicks out. Every near fall from here on out has the crowd just electric, chanting Kofi's name after every kick out. Kofi goes for a bulldog, but Daniel just shoves him into the pod. Daniel hits the knee, Kofi kicks out. More crazy near falls. Daniel catches him to the bell lock, but somehow there's a rope break. Both men are on top of the pod. Kofi goes for a superplex, or I guess if it's from the top of the pod, it's more of a super duperplex. They fight it out for a bit, and they eventually, Daniel gets shoved off the top rope onto the ground. Kofi goes for a splash, but he gets none of it. Daniel hits the knee. Daniel retains. Holy crap, what an ending. What the whole last 5 or 10 or how much minutes of time passed between Orton being eliminated and Kofi losing was just incredible. I give this match 4 stars out of 4. Obviously, the best match of the night. And here's the thing, when you break it down, it really all boils down to just Daniel versus Kofi. That's all the story really hinged on, was these two guys. But the supporting cast did their jobs very well as well. These guys took advantage of the environment, did some really innovative stuff. Everyone did great. And, that aside, just the last portion of the match, when it was just Daniel and Kofi, was some of the best, some of the best near falls, some of the best false finishes, some of the best get out of your seat kind of moments. It made me feel like a fan again, just a pure fan, not having to be analytical about it. This was just an amazing ending for this matchup here. And I think that, Kofi losing didn't make him look bad at all. It leaves the fans wanting more. I'm hopeful that this is not just a thing where, well, this is the spot we were going to give to Mustafa Ali, so we'll put Kofi back on the side for now. I hope they understand what they have here with all this sentimental favoritism for Kofi the fans have now, and this kind of renewed desire to see him in this position of prominence, because I think that if they let this build to a one-on-one match with Daniel and Kofi at WrestleMania, that would be a potentially money-making match. My final grade for Elimination Chamber 2019 is a B-. Now, I was on the cusp of putting on C+, but hear me out. I think the show started strong and ended strong with the chamber matches, in particular the men's, especially with Daniel and Kofi at the end part. I think that the Smackdown tag title match was a welcome surprise, as was Finn winning the IC Championship. Then there was just, this big dead zone where it felt like a really bad episode of Raw, where you had, the Riott versus Rousey match, which stunk, followed by the interaction with Becky and Charlotte, which was a step above the aforementioned match, but still wasn't enough to really save that segment. Lacey Evans showing up was weird. That Corbin versus Strowman, it was what it was. That stuff was bad, but to me, it wasn't enough to pull it down to a C+ with everything else going on this show. I mean, really, like I said, the main event alone, I think, is the highlight of the show, but the other stuff you had, like the earlier chamber match and, the SmackDown tag title match, some other really fun stuff going on in this show that I think made me walk away from it thinking that, okay, this is overall, it was a good show. Let me know what you thought of the show in the comments section below. Give it a letter grade in the iCard in the corner of your screen, and it's really hard to remember the fact that there's still one more pay-per-view before WrestleMania, but we will soldier on. I'm Bryan Zane, and I'll see you next time.